Hi, greetings everyone. Once again, I'm very happy to welcome all of you to Knowledge Management for Biodiversity webinar series. My name is Abhinav, and I'll moderate the third webinar of this series along with my colleague, Frederick Vogel. The theme of today's webinar is scaling up knowledge management to achieve goals and targets of GBF. Our first presentation on this theme is on the topic, leveraging experience and lessons learned from existing KM initiatives, examples from regional observatories for protected areas and biodiversity under the Biodiversity and Protected Areas Management Program. Our speaker for first topic is Mr. Trevor Sandwith, Director, IUCN Center for Conservation Actions. Our second presentation is on the topic leveraging experiences and lessons learned from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity Knowledge Management Program. This topic will be led by Ms. Renée Lorica, Knowledge Management Specialist, ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. As usual, the presentations will be followed by a short question and answer round. You can post your questions and comments using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom application. However, before we start today, I'd like to take 2 minutes of your time to share with you a website that the Secretariat has launched to anchor the KM4B initiative. I hope all of you can see my website, the screen that I'm sharing. Fred, can you confirm if you can see my screen? Perfect.
Yes, we.
So, dear participants, on this website, you can find the relevant details for KM4B initiative by clicking on the various menu sections here. Here you can find the concept note for KM4B, the implementation strategy and approach. You can look at the relevant target 21 of the GBF. You can click KM4B challenge to know more about the process of the KM4B challenge program. And you can look at the entire program of the KM4B webinar series by clicking on this link. Also on the landing page, we are posting the videos of the preceding sessions. You can click on these videos to look at the recording. The videos also have a short summary of the previous webinars. Linked with each of the video is also a discussion forum that the Secretariat has launched. As you click on this discussion forum, you'll be taken to the discussion forum specific to that session, where you can start to post your comments, your insights, your views, and that creates a good platform for collaboration among all the participants and the speakers. So with this short presentation, now I hand over floor to Trevor Sandwith and the team. So please go ahead.
Good day to everybody from Switzerland. I'm pleased to say that I have with me a whole group of people here in Switzerland who are responsible for the BioPharma program globally. We have colleagues from the Pacific, from West and Central Africa, from East and Southern Africa, and from the Caribbean. And we're really excited to be able to explain to you what we've been doing with BioPharma. So given that we don't have a lot of time, I think I'll get started, and then I'm going to ask my colleagues to join in, especially Roxana Buciaka, who is the coordinator of BioPharma globally. So we're going to share our screen. Great. And so just let us know, Prakash, if we can see our screen. And we need to see it too.
Yeah, I confirm. We can see it.
Great. Thanks so much. So as was mentioned in the introduction, we're going to talk about the regional observatories that have been established during the work of the BioPharma program. And I just want to recall that the program began with support from the European Commission through the ACP group of states way back in 2011. So we've had a lot of experience to offer in this process. So, yes, so just to show you where BioPharma has been operating, I mentioned the Pacific. So the Pacific countries, Eastern and Southern Africa, Central and Western Africa, and in the Caribbean. And the ACP group of states includes 78 parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, including most of the least developed and small island states around the world. 3 billion people's livelihoods in these regions depend on natural resources, and there are also regions that are exceptionally rich in biodiversity. And of course, there are many different kinds of protected and conserved areas in both terrestrial and marine environments, more than 10,000 of these areas in these regions. What BioPharma has been able to do over a period of time is establish what we refer to as regional observatories. These are essentially hubs or centers which bring together the knowledge management resources and help the stakeholders in these different regions to make the kinds of decisions that they want. So we're not talking at the global level now, although of course this is relevant to the global level. We're talking about the relevance to national governments and at the regional level. Just to remind you, at the Conference of the Parties that was held in Hyderabad in India, COP11, the decision of the parties was actually to call on initiatives such as BioPharma right at the start of this idea of aligning capacity building to be able to support implementation of national plans for the program of work on protected areas. This was for the Aichi biodiversity targets that were established in Nagoya. And what has happened in the intervening years is that BioPharma has established these regional observatories. There have been a partnership, basically among relevant institutions in the regions, especially aimed at capacity development, but also knowledge management and technology transfer. And the byline that we've used all the way is how do we move from knowledge to action and ultimately, of course, to impact. And the work of these regional observatories has been feeding into the reporting systems through UNEP, World Conservation Monitoring Center, and into the Global Biodiversity Framework Goals and Targets currently. So in addition to establishing regional observatories, BioPharma also established a grant-making facility, providing medium and small grants, including technical grants, to various governments and NGOs to help them mobilize resources, facilitate access and use of data and information, and to promote learning and capacity building, including on the bigger question of how do we actually learn how to do grant making. The European Commission was very keen to see how global funds could be channeled all the way through to local actors and to help them to do their work. So I'm not going to bore you with all the text of the Global Biodiversity Framework. Many of you have been involved in this from the start. The European Commission and the European Union was really keen to see that BioPharma regional observatories and reference information systems were taken up in the decision that was finally agreed in Canada last year. But the idea of having regional support centers and organizations built into the long-term strategic framework for capacity development and knowledge management in support of implementation was born out in those discussions, which ultimately led to the decision, which is on the right-hand side, which was to establish a mechanism focused mainly on a network of regional and other sub-regional technical and scientific cooperation support centers coordinated at a global level. And the most important thing is to make sure that what we're learning about biodiversity can be transferred to actors in the field to be able to do their work better and ultimately achieve the objectives of the convention. So that's an important bit of history, if you like. And now we are in the mix. And what we have built, and I'll try and explain this in a very short way, BioPharma has essentially in the center of that circle, you'll see reference information systems. These were systems to collate and manage and analyze and look at the information in each of the regions, but also these were globalized to be at a global reference information system level. In each region, there was also a regional observatory with the right partners, mainly organizations that have a mandate in that region to work together, bringing countries together. And then the third component was the grant-making facility. So BIOPAMA for the last period has been essentially working on all of these, working on data management, developing knowledge products from data, interpreting those into policy guidance, communicating and networking, and funding actions on the ground to help build capacity. And building capacity also identifies new data needs and also produces new data, which can be brought into the system. Ultimately, the whole goal of BIOPAMA was improved decision-making at the site, system, and international levels. And from the point of view of protected and conserved areas, what we were concerned about was having areas that are effective in conserving biodiversity, but also effectively governed. In other words, that they not only respect the rights and identity of people, but they are also promoting social justice. So BIOPAMA has built up a range of resources that can help to do this. So just we put this slide up just to show you that this doesn't happen by accident. It's something I think that all of us in this knowledge management world have to really get to grips with, is that coordination is essential. At the global level, there are actors. You can see them at the top of the screen, from the European Union to the ACP group of states, IUCN, the Joint Research Center of the European Union, and UNEP's World Conservation Monitoring Center. At the regional level, though, we've had host institutions looking after the regional observatories and working with regional partners. At a national level, especially with the support from the European delegations, we've been engaging with the environment sector in each country, also government, non-governmental organizations, research and education institutions, and of course with beneficiaries who are both the authorities responsible for protected and conserved areas, but also protected area practitioners and decision makers and communities themselves. So very ambitious, but if we want to do this job properly, we have to think of an architecture that helps us do this from global to regional to local level. So I think at this point, I'm going to ask Roxana to take over and just explain what really happens inside each of these regional observatory institutions. Roxana.
Thank you, Trevor. Before I start, again, I want to acknowledge the presence in the room with us today of all the partners that are mentioned who were part of developing the BIOPAMA regional observatories, our donors, our global partners, as well as regional. And this presentation really speaks for the work that all of us have been doing to develop the regional observatories of BIOPAMA for the last more than 10 years. I also want to emphasize that some of the examples we will give here are specific to the global biodiversity framework and the expectations from the regional support centers. All the regional observatories supported by BIOPAMA fulfill a very wide range of functions, but today we will focus in this presentation only on very specific examples. So what are the observatories and the functions that they fulfill? They support better decision-making. They support a wide variety of functions. They support the capacity development. And we've learned today, even in our discussions, that capacity development has been a really important achievement of the BIOPAMA program. We've trained more than 2,000 protected and conserved area professionals through the life of the program, and we need to do more. That is our conclusion. A key part of the BIOPAMA regional observatories is, of course, the regional reference information systems. that are managed by our regional teams with the support of our partners at the Joint Research Center. And the functions is really on data management, data analysis, fulfilling the gaps, and analyzing that information so that we can produce information that can be used in decision-making at all levels, from the local level to the global level. And of course, our important function is really to disseminate that knowledge to ensure that the decision makers actually use that information and it is widely communicated, as the ultimate result for us is really equitable governance and effective management of protected and conserved areas. We've been speaking about the regional observatories, but who are they? Through the BioPAMA support, 5 regional observatories have been established throughout Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific regions. The Regional Resource Hub in Eastern and Southern Africa, which is hosted by RCMRD, the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. In the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway, hosted by the University of the West Indies, and ideally in the future with the support of other regional organizations such as OECS and CARICOM. Going back to Africa, we have Observatoire des Forêts d'Afrique Centrale, the Observatory for Forests of Central Africa, hosted by the Central African Forest Commission, COMIFAC. We have also OBAPAO, French name as well, Observatoire pour la biodiversité et les aires protégées en Afrique de l'Ouest, hosted by a consortium of partners, including Centre de Suivi Écologique, Rampao, University of Ghana, and AgriMed Center, endorsed by the Western African Economic and Monetary Union. And in the Pacific, we have the SPREP Regional Program of Support for Protected Areas, hosted by SPREP, the Secretariat of Pacific Regional Environment Program. There are lots of names. I hope you will engage with them. All the colleagues who represent these observatories are with us today in this room, and we look forward to hearing your questions or comments or wish to engage with them. Looking at what the regional observatories can do, as we said, capacity building is a cross-cutting theme of the regional observatories, and we approach capacity building through all the areas of work of the regional observatories, starting from the data management and the regional information systems. We train national focal points, protected area managers, decision makers at all levels on managing the data, on how to do governance or management assessment, how to use the data, how to input data on their protected areas in the regional observatory and in the World Database on Protected Areas. We produce knowledge products that also support decision makers. Here on the screen, you see one example. We produced a series of state of protected and conserved area reports across the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific regions. You will hear more about this in the regional examples. Our objective is, of course, to have informed decision and actions. Through the BioPAMA support and with the support of the regional observatories, we managed to respond to requests from national governments on designing national strategies for various topics related to protected and conserved areas, and design national strategies on protected areas management. We also provide capacity building on tools. Some of those you see on the screen are management and governance tools. We also provide a variety of capacity building on other topics, as you can see here on the screen, on some on protected and conserved areas, from data management to the application of governance and management tools, OECNs, but then also on other areas such as grants management, sustainable financing, human rights in conservation, how to manage EU financial and technical requests in implementing projects, use of the regional observatories tools, knowledge management, and so on. Focusing on good practices, lesson learned, Panorama is a knowledge management tool that is led by IUCN in collaboration with many other partners. In implementing the BioPAMA program and with the support of the regional observatories, Panorama has been an integrated approach in our knowledge management practices, from, for example, producing publications that focus on specific topics with examples drawn from the BioPAMA experiences through our capacity building, through our knowledge grants management, and so on. So publications are one area where we collaborate with Panorama. The others are, of course, other sorts of publications on capacity development, where we leverage the strength that IUCN has in terms of membership, the work with IUCN commissions, the knowledge product series that IUCN has been producing for many years. And of course, we look at synergies and again, leveraging other initiatives such as the IUCN Green List and our support to global conventions such as the SDGs and the CBD targets. To continue.
Kisite Mpunguti Marine Park is very unique. I would say that this is the only marine park in Kenya which is currently embracing technology in patrols. And through the support of BioPAMA project, we have been able to introduce the smart patrols. Smart simply means the spatial monitoring and reporting tool. So we are using the smart patrol phones for patrols, where rangers now go to the field to collect data using the smart patrol phones.
So far, in partnership with Kenya Wildlife Service, we've been able to train the Kisite Mpunguti Marine Protected Area Rangers on the use of smart technology. And that has included some fieldwork activities, and just to ensure that this system is easily understandable to them and they can implement it. And it also allows us to collect data in real time and having the analysis done at faster rates than before, when you had to collect using a paper and a pen, then transfer it to a computer and have it then analyzed. So it has even shortened the amount of time that it takes for us to collect data and use it to inform management decisions in some of the areas where we work.
It is like you are making a report just on the scene. It can even give you a map of where it is being covered, so you can say, oh, now we are concentrating on this part. Always when you go to patrol, because it has coordinates, and it produces that map that you are going. So patrol 1 has gone the same route. The second patrol has gone the same route. So when you come to analyze that data, you see, okay, now we have a very big park here. But you guys, you're going patrol on this part. What is happening on this other part? You see, now the manager can tell where things are happening, and they can come out with a good management decision.
As we've also been able to set up some of the infrastructure that is required to implement this software, and that includes the purchase or procurement of mobile phones and computers that will help them in this data collection and also the analysis of the data, which will in turn assist in improving the management effectiveness of the MPA.
So through the BioPAMA supported smart tool, we are actually saving 2 birds using a single effort. And so we are achieving our objectives. The rangers go to the field, they are able to collect information on the tourists, they are able to collect information on illegal activities, they are able to do ecological monitoring and collect that data.
I thought that the voice of one of our stakeholders can speak louder than anything I can tell you about what we do in terms of mobilizing resources for targeted support. What you saw in the video is one of our grantees, one of our projects in Kenya. And that was also an example, in addition to mobilizing resources through the BioPAMA program, it was also a very good example of capacity building to use the smart tool. And the results of the data collection using the smart tool in the protected area is linked to the regional observatory, so that the information is collected on the ground and it's available and it's analyzed in the regional observatory, then it can contribute to knowledge products, then it can inform decision makers at the site level, at the system level, and so on. So there is a logic that connects very well all the components of the BioPharma program. Moving on, in terms of facilitating knowledge sharing and organizational learning, with the BioPharma program, we developed knowledge sharing journey for the grant making facilities under the BioPharma program and another program called BEST. It was the first time ever that we organized such journey with the objective of really looking at how we implement grant making with what results, aiming at improving our practices so that it best benefits the beneficiaries, but also IUCN and the organizations that implement grant making, as well as the donors, those who invest in grant making facilities and fund third parties to manage that on their behalf. For us, it has been an exceptional journey. Panorama has also been part of the methodology we used, and we produced at least 50 Panorama solutions with the experiences of those beneficiaries who do the actual work on the ground. Our job now is to link that local practice to the structures we put in place to the regional observatories and make sure that that communicates with the global level and that the feedback contributes to the global biodiversity framework. To continue, 4 of our colleagues who sit here in the room will provide very specific examples of the type of services and experiences that each regional observatory implements. However, these are just examples. We only have 30 minutes. If you want to hear more about each of the regional observatories, get in touch with us. There's so much more to say, but for the objective of this presentation, each of our regional colleagues will present a very specific, will illustrate some of the things that the regional observatories can do. Christine, over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christine Menzel. I've been coordinating the BioPharma program in Eastern and Southern Africa and working very closely with the Regional Resource Hub, which is the observatory in that region. And one of the examples I want to share is around what we noticed in our region is that the action on the ground that is required, that is often highlighted through the information and data we gather, is implemented very locally by community-based organizations who often do not have the sufficient capacity to manage grants properly. And so we developed an approach where we link community-based organizations with NGOs in a partnership to implement grant mechanisms. And we currently have 13 such partnerships operating in the region with projects worth around 2.5 million euros. And the idea really is to make sure that the work that is happening on the ground is properly funded, but that there is also support for managing the funds that actually become available to implement there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rahul. I'm based in Fiji, the BioPharma coordinator, and I'm working very closely with SPREP, the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. SPREP houses the Pacific Islands Protected Area Portal, and over the years we have worked with the communities and we have provided 300 protected area practitioners training. We've also done about 10% of protected area regional support to adopt governance and management evaluation tools, and over about 100,000 people that have used our portal to help with decision making, and 70% of countries with updated protected area data sets.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Tanya Mersuran, and I am the BioPharma Regional Coordinator for West and Central Africa. So I'm going to start with the example of Central Africa, where we work closely with OFAC, which is the Observatory for Forests of Central Africa, which is embedded in an intergovernmental organization that really supports decision-making first from the national level, then to the regional level. And it really helps tracking progresses that are made at all of these levels with the support of knowledge products. And the state of protected areas of Central Africa is one of these products. And it really supports decision-making because not only does it collect data from the ground, but it also produces a set of analyses that supports decision makers at local, national, regional, and global level to inform decision making. And also it tracks progresses to indicators that talks to all these different levels. And in West Africa, we work closely with OBAPAO, which is the Regional Observatory there, which is interesting because it is a consortium that is endorsed by our regional economic community, and it really helps us through several tools to know what we are protecting. And IMET is one example that we use a lot, which is the Integrated Management Effectiveness Tool. And through our activities in the BioPharma program, we created the coach network for management effectiveness of protected areas, which has a Pan-African view, but started in the region in West and Central Africa. And we not only use IMET, but also expand to a large variety of other tools, such as the Green List, that really support national stakeholders, NGOs, academics, to really collect the necessary data that will inform decision-making and that will ensure that we are working towards the goals that we'll have.
Hello, everyone. I am Hyacinth, and I coordinate the BioPharma program in the Caribbean. And we have partnered with the University of the West Indies to host our regional observatory, which is called the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway. And I can say that we are probably one of the only resources in the region that is providing Caribbean-wide biodiversity and protected areas information. And in addition to that, services and tools which will support our region in analyzing, mapping, and addressing all of the issues and pulling that information together to link data to better decisions, which is our tagline. We are hoping that at the end of this process within the University of the West Indies, we can expand to link in with the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and of course with CARICOM, again, strengthening our role within the region to support our decision-making processes.
Well, thanks so much to Roxana and all the colleagues from the regions. It's great to have that quick snapshot of the different types of services and roles that these regional observatories play. And just to end off with, we thought, well, maybe we should just highlight some key messages. We really, as you will have seen, these regional observatories already strongly positioned to contribute at least to the development of these regional technical and scientific cooperation centers for the CBD in Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific. But one of the things that we found that's absolutely essential is that coordination is key, that there are clear institutional mandates and functions that lead to effective support. We see this as a general issue, I think, for what the CBD is trying to do globally. And we're very happy to offer our learning and experience on coordination for this purpose with all of you. Another really important issue is that, decision-making needs to be focused. Decision makers have to be focused. They're dealing with scarce resources and institutions. So we need to couple the goals and targets that we have at a global level with the responsibilities that institutions have to deliver, and make sure that the information that we gather, the knowledge that we develop, is tailored to what they need. So it's not a top-down, but a bottom-up process. What do they need to do on the ground, and how can we support that? Then we can learn from what they do on the ground and elevate that knowledge to a global level and disseminate it more widely. So it's one of those, it's not a conundrum, it's about going from practice to global policy and back down again. And one of the things that's so interesting is that the piloting of grant mechanisms through BioPharma has really shown that it's not just what we're doing, but who we're doing it with, that actually strengthening the capacity of the organizations to work on the ground and to make sure we capture that learning and bring that learning back and make it more widely available is a key issue and a key message from BIOPAMA. So we hope this was interesting to you. And of course, during this webinar, you can continue to write your questions and comments in the chat and in the discussion forum that is being set up for this purpose. So with that, again, I'd like to thank everybody involved and offer our support for this big effort that the CBD is making to make this a globally relevant type of function in support of conservation. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Trevor, and thank you so much to the entire BIOPAMA team for your very informative presentation. I'm sure many of our participants would definitely like to know more about the BIOPAMA programs. And in case you have a group email ID or some contact number where they can approach you, please feel free to drop that into the chat so that our participants can look that up and they can record that for their own purpose. So with this, now I'd like to invite our colleague Renée and rest of the colleagues from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity to speak on the second topic of the day. Renée and ASEAN colleagues, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Abhinav. Please allow me to share my screen. Would you kindly confirm that you can already see the shared screen?
Yes, I confirm.
Thanks, Abhinav. So good morning, good evening, and good day, wherever you are joining us from. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with everyone here on how ASEAN Center for Biodiversity leverages our experiences and lesson learned in knowledge management in the region. My name is Renée, and I am the Director for the Knowledge Management Division at ACB. But before I delve into this topic, please allow me to give you a brief background about ACB for those who are not yet familiar with us. So the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity is an intergovernmental organization that was created by the 10 ASEAN member states in 2005 by virtue of an establishment agreement. We are generously hosted by the Philippine government, so the headquarters is located in Los Baños, Philippines. The center facilitates cooperation amongst the ASEAN member states and with relevant national, regional, and international organizations on the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity in the ASEAN. We promote the collaboration of efforts between the AMS in realizing their commitments under the Convention on Biological Diversity in synergy with other multilateral environmental agreements. Now, as you can see in your screen, these are the 6 priority programs of ACB, with knowledge management and SIPA being two of our priority programs. These two, we believe, go hand in hand. Now, during the Knowledge Management for Biodiversity Initiative side event last year, I presented these challenges that the ACB experiences with knowledge management, and perhaps some of you can relate to them. These challenges remain, albeit to varying degrees, and with the subsequent slides, I hope to present to you how the center tries to address these challenges. Ever since its establishment, the ACB has been implementing activities that support, implement, and practice knowledge resource sharing, knowledge networking and alliance, knowledge continuity management, and knowledge economy. However, it is with the adoption of the knowledge management plan this year that this has been institutionalized. Now, the KM plan has been in the works since 2021, but it was finalized this year and endorsed by the 10 ASEAN member states in July. Now, if you will look to the framework that you will see here, you will see that we are always guided by the regional strategic priorities, being an ASEAN center. And I think that's very important because this is what the region sees as important to them. In the KM plan, we have identified 8 major strategies that we will be implementing, and I will not be going through each of them, but I just wanted to show you that these are the strategies that that we are focusing on at ACB. I think it's also important to acknowledge that while we do have a dedicated KM division, we are just composed of 3 people. However, we do have a knowledge management team. It's composed of 24 people from different departments, bringing in different expertise, experience, and skills. And I think this is really important when we try to address the knowledge management needs of the ASEAN member states. Now, as you can see, the communications programs and information communication technology, these are all the different composition of the ACB KM team, which helps the KM division in fulfilling its mandate. We do have products, services, and networks, which I will be presenting shortly. We have also identified gaps and how these could be addressed, or how we hope this could be addressed. And of course, we have identified that we needed a monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning system. Now, we did not, prior to this year, we didn't actually have a baseline. And so we thought it would be important to do a baseline study in order for us to capture data, analyze information, and present recommendations on the utilization and effectiveness of ACB's knowledge products, services, and networks, which will inform our next steps. Now, the baseline survey is currently being analyzed, but let me just present to you initially what we've found. So we've had 100 respondents from 10 ASEAN member states. Most of them are male, 41% are female. The survey ran only for a couple of months, and this was done mostly online. However, there were key informant interviews and focus group discussions. And through this survey, we were able to determine what was lacking, what is working, what wasn't working. However, again, these are just preliminary results, and the qualitative and the quantitative results still require deeper analysis. And we will also be doing an anticipatory or features analysis, so that it will take us further into a deeper understanding of the KM needs of the ASEAN member states. There was also a SEPA scoping study that was conducted by the ACB, and this was done prior to the baseline KM baseline study. This was already long completed, and so we will be showing you the results of this SEPA scoping study, but just a glimpse of that. And so the result shows that there were some ASEAN member states that may have low to medium levels of biodiversity. There was some clustering done, and then I think more important are the recommendations. And I think this shows us that you cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach to these things. You have to customize per member state the approach that you will need in order to deliver to them the requisite SEPA strategy that is needed. The ACB also has several knowledge services. The one that is almost always seen is our website, which is maintained by our communications department. We also have an ASEAN clearinghouse mechanism, which was established as a gateway to all available biodiversity-related information in the ASEAN. Now, it provides a cohesive and integrated perspective of the region's biological resources. And through the ASEAN clearinghouse mechanism, you will also be able to go and see the clearinghouse mechanisms of the different ASEAN member states. Now, there's only 7 at the moment, 7 stable functional CHM. Come October, with the support of the CBD, we will be conducting a workshop with the ASEAN member states that still do not have the CHM, so that they will be able to establish their own. And we would like to thank the CBD for their support on that workshop in October. The ACB also maintains the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard, which is an interactive online platform which you can use to visualize trends and geographic variation in biodiversity indicators. Now, this ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard it already has improvements So it will we have the dash facts, which are facts and figures on biodiversity in the ASEAN, presented through infographics, figures, illustrations, animations, and graphs. We also have glimpses, which is the snapshots of specific subjects. For example, maps, maybe on the distribution of Rafflesia in the ASEAN. It will have also images, for example, phylogenetic tree of hornbills in ASEAN, and it will also feature fact sheets, which are brief articles on specific subjects relevant to ASEAN biodiversity. This is not yet active, but the perspectives are articles which are peer-reviewed and which will be published online in the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard. And these are in-depth analysis of biodiversity and the issues that plague biodiversity in the ASEAN. The ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard continues to improve. We strive to keep it going with the computational tools, data, models, and information technologies that are currently available and crucial to its development. The next knowledge service that we have is not yet active at the moment. It is still in development, but it is the knowledge management platform, which is meant to be a repository of all the knowledge products of ACB. Now there will be this is a place where people can upload their publications, for example, like our scientific advisory committee. People can also download these products. There will be several user types, so it really depends on the user type on what you're allowed to do with the platform. So for example, we have admin rights, and so we will be the ones to be able to delete some of the files, or if it's redundant, etc. But it's not just going to be a repository. We envision it to be a community of users. So we will be holding or hosting forums on different thematic interests about biodiversity in ASEAN, and where users can also connect with scientists through these forums. We also have an e-learning platform where we feature 12 learning modules on different biodiversity tools. It is cross-platform, so you can use it with your laptop, with your tablet, or your phone. It's easily accessible, it's free, and it's also self-paced. The other service that we offer are capacity development. So we have been conducting data visualization, organization, and mobilization trainings, in addition to trainings of park managers in the different ASEAN heritage parks. We also have a lot of webinars, and I think many of these are during the pandemic. We had more webinars than we would normally have, because it was everything was being done remotely. So we have a lot of webinars. Please check out our YouTube channel for those webinars. And the knowledge product that we have, this is our flagship publication. This is the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook. And this showcases progresses and lessons learned in biodiversity conservation in the ASEAN region. Now, the contents for the ABO are synthesized from the national reports of the ASEAN member states to the CBD. The last one, the latest one, which is the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook 3, came from the 6th national report to the CBD, and it shows the progresses, lessons learned towards the Aichi biodiversity targets. We also have a website for this ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook 3. We hope you would check it out. That you can see here on your screen, that's the website for the ABO 3. You can also download a PDF version of the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook from that website. The other knowledge projects that we have are policy briefs, and these are a concise summary of information which can help readers understand and make decisions about government policy. So for example, we have a policy brief from the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook. So these are those. And then we also have newsletters, storybooks, and comic books coming out of the different projects at ECB. And then we also have produced proceedings, publications, and regional analysis on the different aspects of biodiversity conservation in the ASEAN. We also have informative videos that are shared through our various social media platform. Again, if you would like to see them, please visit this YouTube address of the ACB. Now, no organization has the monopoly of all biodiversity knowledge. And so to help the ACB provide evidence and science-based data for decision-making, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity established the Scientific Advisory Committee. These are scientists, these are experts that are nominated by each of the 10 ASEAN member states, and they provide scientific and technical advice to the ASEAN member states and the ACB. They participate and/or contribute to review processes of selected knowledge products that are developed by the ACB and its partners to ensure the highest levels of quality and credibility. They could also recommend and request to collaborate with, as may be necessary, other nationally and regionally recognized experts on the region's biodiversity. We have been requesting the Scientific Advisory Committee for those recommendations. And so we have a list of biodiversity experts, which the ASEAN member states, if they needed a particular expertise, we can pull out from this list per request. So for example, we have experts from the ASEAN Flyway Network. We have experts on mainstreaming biodiversity in that list. We, of course, have our protected area managers who are experts on the ground in managing their respective AHPs and protected areas. And of course, we have our traditional partners, our data partners, and we are still making seeking partnerships. Right now, we have an agreement in process with 3 other organizations in order for us to improve the service that we deliver to the ASEAN member states. Moving forward, the ACB will continue to provide free, open access, open source analytical tools. And we will continue to build on and improve on existing platforms, provide the best available material, data, indicators, analytical models that are made available by key institutions and the partnerships that we have and that we will be making. We intend to optimize the use of various open platforms, but hopefully simplify the delivery of scientific data so that it will cater to the interest of decision makers and answer policy related questions. We will work closely with communicators who can help transform these data into easily understandable knowledge products that are designed for policymakers and specific audience types. We will still pursue collaboration with specialist teams, experts, networks, and projects that could contribute to updated and quality information so that we will ensure that these information and platforms will be useful and will still be relevant to the ASEAN member states. We will continue to facilitate data contribution from citizen science and non-government research initiatives, and engage academic institutions as our data partners and provide capacity support to all the ASEAN member states to share so that they can share data in an interoperable, easily accessible, and open source format, and maintain our national, global, and regional partners to promote biodiversity information sharing at all planning levels. So I hope to continue this discussion with all of you. Again, thank you so much to the CBD for inviting us, and have a good day to everyone and have a productive discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Renée. This was a very excellent presentation. Thanks to you and your team. And a special thanks considering that I know it's very late over there, but you still took time to attend the presentation and speak on the topic. So special thanks for that. I would just like to remind to all our participants that in the chat screen, you can see that the Biopharma team has already dropped a number of very useful links that will take you to their website and to the information centers. So you can already try to copy that link. And on our part, we will also host those links on our website so that after this webinar, you can still access them. Renée, I also saw that in your presentation, you had also referred to certain URLs and resources. So if your team can also drop on those links into the chat section here, our participants can easily click on them and then they can view the material over there. So with this, I would like to open the floor now for questions from our participants. I can already see that we had 2 questions earlier posted that were answered already by Tanya. And another was answered by Christine. But in case Tanya and Christine, you would like to take the floor to answer the question in voice, you are most welcome to do that. I also saw that some of the participants, they raised hand to ask the questions. Just a reminder to everybody that to ask your questions, please use the Q&A function. It won't be possible for you to ask your questions in voice. So please post your questions in writing, and then our speakers, they will take up the question and then they will answer to it.
Oh. All right, so I'm responding to a question from Ari that came in the chat, asking specifically if we can speak more about the directory of experts developed in the Caribbean and how these experts are contributing to advancing knowledge, sharing, and learning in the region. So in the case of the Caribbean, and not just the Caribbean, but across all of our regional observatories, we recognize that we do have expertise within the region that we can make available or have accessible to our countries, because in terms of implementing some of the work within the agencies that have responsibilities for protected areas and conserved areas, they don't have all of the resources, they don't have all of the access. So we have developed this directory of experts to begin to connect our stakeholders to personnel within the region that can support them directly. And then we also have what we call communities of practice across all of the regions to again start to build the networking, to build the sharing of expertise, sharing of experiences across all of our stakeholders so that they can better build their capacity, build their ability to function, and to also share resources as required. So I hope that, and we hope that this can continue as we grow our networks, as we grow our skills and expertise within the regional observatories themselves, but then also spreading that down to the regional, to the site level and the national levels in our respective countries.
Thank you. Renée, I see that there is a question for you from Gregoire Dubois. If you would like to take that up.
Thanks, Abhinav. Gregoire's question, and if I can just read that, is how do we measure the impact of policy briefs on policy? So thanks, Gregoire, for the question. At the moment, we do not yet have this capacity to measure the impact of policy briefs on policies, but this is one of those things that is we would hope to have in the future. And with the ACB's monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning system, we hope to inject some way to measure the impact of policy briefs on policy. This is our next step this year when we establish the meal system for KM or ACB. Thank you.
Thank you, Renée. There's next question, how the matchmaking was done using the platform. I think it's again directed towards you.
Sorry, Abhinav, is this question for me or for?
I'm trying to figure out.
I think it's for Biopharma.
Yeah, I think it's for Biopharma.
Okay, yeah, I think it was about the matchmaking of the funding to the organizations that are implementing on the ground. So how that was done is essentially, I guess there's two ways coming at it from two different angles. One is identifying the needs in the field on the ground and the community-based organizations that are active there and that are managing the resources at the site level. But then also looking at which NGOs are already working and supporting those CBOs in the region so that they can build capacity of the CBO at the same time as implementing the projects. I hope that that's a little bit clearer, but the intention really was to try and make sure, because we recognized that there was an inability to access funding for where it was actually needed, which is locally by the community-based natural resource management committees and the like, to actually manage the resources at the site level. And the constraint was really about managing the funds. So there's an administrative component that was a barrier to implementing biodiversity actions on the ground. And in trying to figure out how we could address that, we came up with a solution of linking the action on the ground with support on this institutional sort of administrative level to help with the management of the funds as well, so that we could actually make sure that the funding is implemented and lands on the ground where it's needed.
Maybe I'll add to that question, because in a way it comes from the brief for the regional support centers that ultimately the decision from the CBD would be to try and put resources and those who need the resources in touch with one another. But it's a really important discussion that Christine has raised and affects the ability to actually take funds directly to those who need them. Many of these internationally developed funding mechanisms are very complex, legally, institutionally, and from a financial management point of view. And that it's a really serious barrier to get that money in the hands of those who really need it. But maybe we talk a lot these days about direct financing, but because we want the experiences to be genuine, that they are the actual stakeholders on the ground that are doing the work, it's their knowledge that is being developed, it's their understanding that is being shared. But it does seem, at least for the foreseeable future, that one needs to have intermediaries. And this is where these envisaged support centers could really help, is not to, in a way, get in the way of the knowledge sharing or in the way of the mobilization of financial resources, but to be facilitators of that exchange and that matchmaking. I think that's a big issue for this knowledge management. We hear over and over again, we don't need people speaking for us. We need to be able to have our own voices heard, but yet maybe there's a step in between where we've got to help that process without somehow distorting the message or taking over the ownership of the information. These information resources are really belong to who they come from, the people who do the work.
Thank you, Trevor, and thank you, team. So next question is for Renée, I think. And also I'd like to request our participants that as you are posting the question, if you can please mention the team to which you want to ask the question, that will help our participants to easily take them up. Renée, you can please go ahead for the next one, which is from Lena. And then Biopharma team, I'll come back to you for the next question.
So Lena's question is, how do you see the application of the biodiversity dashboard for the private sector, especially in industries with high environmental impact? So thank you very much for that question. The ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard features different types of maps, different habitat types in the ASEAN. It also features where the ASEAN heritage parks are located, the different biodiversity, different species, different animals, different plants. And so if the dashboard is used to overlay all these information, you would see which areas are highly vulnerable, and hopefully they will not use these areas for destructive activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Renée. Trevor, the next question is from Lauren, is directed to Biopharma. If you and your team can take that up, please. Should I read out the question?
No, we can see the question. The question is, how has Biopharma offered support to CARICOM? What opportunities can Biopharma offer support to CBD parties in the Caribbean implementing? There's a specific GBF project mentioned and NBSAP updates. I think maybe Hyacinth would be able to explain how they reach out to all partners, including CARICOM, and what role Biopharma can continue to play.
Thanks, Trevor. So we have engaged with the CARICOM Secretariat and have tried to engage directly with the parties as well, the member states. We are in a position to support the Caribbean Biodiversity Strategy. We would have been involved in the development of it, not very specifically in terms of providing direct data and information, but working alongside, I think it would have been Canary at the time, in advising and developing the strategy. We are in a position now to also support in the implementation of that strategy, but to be honest, I have not seen from CARICOM what is the mechanism in which to do that, but we are poised to support that process when and how it is rolled out by CARICOM. And then, of course, with respect to updating the NBSAPs, I know that the UNDP is currently sourcing support, at least coordinators to support at a national level and at a sub-regional level. So again, we are in a position to engage with the UNDP, who would lead the support to some of the countries in the updating of the NBSAPs. Again, we are available to work with you because we are, through the team, the Caribbean Protected Areas Gateway team, also working directly with a lot of the agencies in country. So we really want to try to close the gaps and make sure that all parties are aware of who's available, but then also work together as a unit so that we can ensure that the countries are able to meet their objectives at a national level and then also at a global level. So Biopharma is available and present. You can reach out to, I guess, if you want to be very specific in who to contact, it would be myself. And I will put my email in the chat, and then we can coordinate from that perspective. And we do also work with the OECS Commission, as I mentioned, I think in my initial presentation. So again, we're trying to ensure that we are linking with all the relevant partners in the region to ensure that we support the countries in achieving their objectives and goals under the CPT.
Thank you so much. So the next question from Mr. John is, I think it's a little open-ended question. It can be answered by Biopharma and ASEAN Center for Biodiversity as well. So the question is, are there local on-ground digital systems that allow IPLCs to connect and communicate with each other and also with the scientists?
I'm not sure whether to take on the responsibility for answering this question, but I would say certainly in the Biopharma program, we haven't had let's say a live online exchange mechanism to do this, except via the regional coordinators and their teams. So picking up requests and channeling them, putting a person in touch with another expert, that networking responsibility has definitely been important. I think it's also probably necessary to distinguish between IP and LC, because they're very, very different needs and responses. But one of the things that has as was being explained, certainly by Roxana, is that one cannot just rely on digital mechanisms to do this. The peer-to-peer learning is a very important part of what's going on, and actually being able to bring people together, reflect on experiences and build knowledge together and exchange and learn from one another is an extremely powerful mechanism, and we really need to think about how to do that. So knowing how to contact people and having them know how to contact these regional centers is going to be a really important part, but it can't only be a kind of remote type of operation. Learning really happens much better when people are together, and certainly through the panorama solutioning workshops that Roxana was talking about, the knowledge sharing journeys, almost revolutionary in the way that they can grow and develop knowledge and disseminate it all in one go. So we need to build, if you like, the institutional mechanism for that, as has also been done by ASEAN. So maybe Renée, you're going to talk about that. But during the pandemic, obviously we had to rely on virtual mechanism, but in between, we need to think about how to bring the practitioners from very diverse backgrounds together to share. That's always going to be, I think, the number one way of doing that, with the institutional support to try and capture and then disseminate the lessons digitally to a wider audience. Okay, Christine.
Maybe just to add that the regional observatories, I think, yes, it's maybe not a live platform, but I think they also share information on the experts in the region. And maybe as an example from the Eastern and Southern African region, through the development of these knowledge products, the State of Protected and Conserved Areas report, that is a very collaborative effort that we are, or the observatories are working with the countries and also a variety of stakeholders to put together a regional overview of all parts of protected and conserved areas, including also the contribution of IPLCs to conservation and to biodiversity, protected and conserved areas. So that's maybe one of the mechanisms that we are using to engage. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Abhinav, so for the ASEAN, the ACB provides a platform with the ASEAN member states through our experiential learning program within the ASEAN Heritage Parks for the IPs and the local communities. Also, we have the ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference every 3 years, which features the different efforts of the AHPs. And then we also have, as I mentioned earlier, during the pandemic, a lot of the activities that we had to do were online. So the webinars were conducted online, also via social media. And then we also have a network of IPLCs that we invite online and face-to-face for our dialogues and forums that are being conducted by the center every year.
Thank you, BioPharma team. Thank you, Renée, for your very considered answers. Moving ahead next, I see that next question has been posted by Eri in chat. Eri, would you like to take the floor to ask the question, or should I read it out?
I can ask it again, but I'm sorry for using the chat because it looks like we panelists don't have the option for asking the questions on the Q&A section. So I had no option but to post it on the chat. And basically this was to both ACB and BioPharma. I wanted to know how I think the Caribbean has already answered a bit of this question already, how you are engaging and supporting the parties right now as they are revising their NBSAPs to actively and proactively incorporate knowledge management components into their NBSAPs, because these are the policy documents that are going to guide government action. If we don't incorporate knowledge management deliberately, into these documents, then it's going to be very difficult to when it comes to helping to implement Target 21. So, and I'm wondering whether you have already started engaging with these countries, or if you have plans to engage and support these countries to be able to integrate knowledge management components into their NBSAP. So that was my question. Thank you.
So maybe from the BioPharma partnership point of view, I'd like to just refer to the fact that, well, first of all, the BioPharma regional observatories and host institutions are in partnerships at the regional level. And when if you like, the call has come out to support parties to revise their NBSAPs, including through the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership, we have been engaging with each of the IUCN regional offices and partners to see what collective capacity there is at each regional level to do that. So IUCN has joined the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership and is actively reaching out to partners and other institutions in each region in order to do exactly what you're talking about. Now you are referring, and it's not just about knowledge management target 21 itself, but of course it's knowledge management for all the other targets. And what we're going to have to look at, including in the meeting where we are now, is how to take your question forward, because it's really a matter of sustainability of our efforts, that we are able to look at the lessons learned and offer that to the countries, in this case, the ACP group of states, and beyond that to IUCN's footprint around the world. So I'm glad that you've highlighted that area. It's something we need to be specific about, because we've tended to be more technically focused, if you like. How do we do management effectiveness, or how do we do governance, and not so much around knowledge management. But IUCN and the IUCN Council has just approved a new knowledge management strategy. And so we have an opportunity to essentially work on the Target 21 topic more effectively. I'll leave it at that. Part of our mission here is to think about what is the legacy of BioPharma, given that we have these different groupings of organizations in the different regions. But one of the really important legacy areas would be to make sure that knowledge management learning is actually incorporated into the ongoing mandates of these institutions and partnerships. Thanks.
And SCB?
For ACB, so we recently had an NBSAP dialogue, which was co-organized with the CBD, and really this is just the beginning. We are developing our regional support to the NBSAPs, which is the RBSAP. It is aimed to reach local to national to regional decision makers, and of course we will also be again still conducting our workshops, which are in support of the preparation of the national reports. The workshop that I mentioned earlier during my talk, which is in supporting the development of the clearinghouse mechanism of 3 ASEAN member states. I think these are really important for them to be able to fulfill the requirements for the NBSAP. Other workshops that will be conducted aims to that the member states are able to share best practices and lessons learned, and this will be happening over the course of this year to the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Renée. I see that the next question that was asked at 9:12 has already been answered by Christine. Christine, if you have anything to add to that question in voice, you can take the floor, or we can move to the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Christine answered in the chat, but we want to add a few things. So Quentin from Komifakofak, our partner in BioPharma, asked us how are we planning to feedback the lessons learned and data from the initiatives undertaken with the BioPAMA grants? And part of the answer is Panorama. As we said, Panorama is part of the methodology we employ to document lessons learned, what worked, what we could do better in grant making from the perspective of the actions that are implemented through the grants, but also from, let's say, institutional perspective. How do we implement grant making? What us as IUCN, as managers of the grants, can do better, how the donors can implement the design grant-making facilities that are better suited for the challenges that protected and conserved areas face. Our part of the answer is the knowledge sharing journey. As I said earlier, we embarked on this journey with our grantees to learn from them, to learn from their experiences. And actually next week, we are organizing 2 online events to share with everyone the results of our journey, the results of our documentation on what are the best practices in grant making, what are the results of our grantees. We will hear from our grantees. We have 160 grantees only through the BioPAMA program. IUCN is managing more than 50 grants programs, and we will be able to share all those lessons learned. In terms of data management and what we do with the results of the activities that are implemented through the grants, again, the regional observatories have a major role and opportunity to play in terms of connecting the local practice to documenting the data, analyzing it, and going back in that circle of the logic of the BioPAMA program to support documentation of best practices, to document information, and produce recommendations that can be used in decision making. We will put in the link in the chat the invitations to the knowledge sharing journey gathering that we're organizing next week. Hope you can join us and learn more about those lessons learned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have one more question that was asked at 9:18 a.m. I think BioPAMA team, you were making a comment at that point. So perhaps the question is directed towards you, but I'm not very sure about the context of this question. So if somebody would like to take it up, or maybe we can request the person who has asked the question to elaborate a little bit more on it. Okay, Tanya, please go ahead.
We were going to ask for more context to the question because we're not quite sure what it means. Sorry.
Yeah, we are trying to contact the person who asked.
Right. Also, I would like to remind the participants that because we have discussion forums associated with each of the webinar sessions, so in case their questions are not answered, please feel free to post the questions as part of the discussion forum, or they can drop an email to us and we can read out the question to the participants. So because, I know that we are running out of time, but just because we run out of the time doesn't mean that we run out of the time to answer questions. So next question, I think, Eddie, is towards somebody suggesting that we should look at or consider the very phrase knowledge management because it has a more business implication. But I think we had answered this question in the last webinar as well.
Okay, can I take up that question? Yeah, well, this is, I think we need to know more about what the concerns are specifically, but a decision has already been taken by the COP. It's not about the CBD Secretariat per se. It's about the COP if they decide to change the terminology. So, but it would be good to, if you can write to us to explain exactly what the concern is about the term knowledge management. Then we'll have to bring it to the attention of the COP to see if it merits changing the term knowledge management. In target 21, I think the provisos that were put there with respect to indigenous knowledge, I think somehow should be able to cover those concerns. But if not, then it would be good if we could get more. If you could write to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you so much. So I don't see any more questions, at least for now. So with this, then I think we can take the time to once again thanks all our speakers and all the participants for making this a very lively, very interactive session and very informative session for everybody. Please join us for our next session, which is on 26th September. The theme for the next session is From Theory to Action, Implementing Knowledge Management for Biodiversity on the Ground. You will get the details of the session on our website. And also, once again, I would like to mention that the recording of this session and the content that has been shared in today's webinar, all of the content will be posted on our website. So with this, once again, thanks to everybody and have a great day and great week ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ari. Thanks, Abhinav. Thanks, Frederick. Thank you.